We do have a quorum with Mr. Hubenak being absent. At this time, we'll observe a moment of silence, and you can do that as you so choose. Thank you. Now, if you'd stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and again, welcome everybody. Very studious crowd out there. Y'all got quiet 5 minutes before we start. Looks like we have a student report, Dr. Randall.
We do, Mr. President.
Good evening. First and foremost, we'd like to thank you all for your time tonight. We are students from B.F. Terry High School. My name is Florence Fan.
My name is Eleni Hernandez.
My name is Faman Khan.
My name is Sydney Sorto.
My name is Ugoma Igwe.
And my name is Ashley Navarro.
And today we are going to be demonstrating how we as students use and manipulate the Z-Space technology in the classroom. It is a form of holography that allows us to get a better perspective of the human anatomy and how we can cut into it, measure it, and dissect it.
Most people refer to it as a 3D program, but the correct term is holography. Holography means that you can see the picture directly in front of you.
How Z-Space has enriched my learning environment is that I get to see an insight of how the body works. For example, the cardiovascular system. I get to see how the heart interacts with the aorta, the veins, the arteries, and etc. This has helped me a lot, and it's a very fun learning program to do.
This program also helps students understand the digestive system, from seeing nutrients being absorbed in the small intestine to seeing food being digested from the oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, all the way to the defecation system.
Z-Space is beneficial for students who are interested in going to the medical field like me. I know since before I could even talk, I've always wanted to go into the medical field. So if somebody would have told me I get an opportunity like this while I'm still in high school to get a head start on my career, I would ask them to pinch me. It's just too good to be true. By using the pen as my scalpel, I'm able to dissect my patient's organs, bring it closer to me, and get a face-to-face perspective of how it works in the body.
Z-Space has made a difference in learning by letting us get hands-on experience. It allows us to look inside of the body and get how to learn how to dissect the heart and the brain. And I just feel that it makes us more successful and gets us ready for our future.
I know that we've only talked about the human anatomy, but there are other subjects such as chemistry, physics, astronomy, environmental science inside the Z-Space computer system.
Now we would like to invite the board members to divide themselves evenly between the 3 computers so you can get a hands-on experience.
All right.
At this time, we'd like to thank y'all for listening to us with open ears. We want to thank y'all for giving us your time, and we hope that you enjoyed yourself as much as we enjoy ourselves every day in class.
Thank you. I remember your name because we became doctors and I'm still around. I already made my doctor's appointment. Very nice. All the schools have the same, no,
Not yet.
not yet.
That's something we gotta do.
Okay, I've already made my doctor appointment. Oh, okay. They better hurry, huh? This is it, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it, I'm really excited about finishing that. Oh. So I have to go over to Terry and place.
I think we're good.
Well, most impressive and actually a little bit scary, wasn't it? Do we have any recognitions and awards tonight, Dr. Randall?
We do not.
All right. Introductions.
We do have two introductions this evening, Mr. President.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Tonight, I'd like to introduce you to the new campus coordinator and head coach at George Ranch High School, Nick Cavallo. He's joined tonight by his wife, Kristen, his daughter, Adriana, his sons, Blake and Colt, and his mom, Barbara. Coach is a May 2006 graduate of Purdue University with a bachelor's degree in law and society. In addition to collegiate playing and coaching experience, Nick has 5 years of teaching and coaching experience in Lamar CISD, and he has already started in his new role. Congratulations.
Congratulations. I've heard all good things about you.
Keep up the good work.
Next, I would like to introduce you to the new principal at Williams Elementary, Anitra Wilson. Ms. Wilson is joined tonight by her dad, Randy Williams, and her daughters, Caitlin, Addison, and Emily. Ms. Wilson is a December 2003 graduate of the University of Houston Downtown with a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies. She received a master's in 2010 in educational leadership from the University of Houston downtown as well. She has 13 years of experience in education, including 8 years of teaching experience, 2 years as a teacher development specialist, and 3 years as an assistant principal at Taylor Ray. Additionally, Ms. Wilson served as the summer school principal last summer. She starts in her new role Monday. Congratulations.
I'm going to be seeing you here.
Thank you.
At this time, we will see if we have any audience patrons.
We do.
Yes, Mr. President. We are now the portion of the meeting when the board allots time to hear persons who desire to make comments to the board. Persons who wish to speak to the board must sign up to do so as they arrive, and they must indicate the topic about which they wish to speak. No presentation shall exceed 5 minutes. Delegations of more than 5 persons shall appoint one person to present their views. The board will hear the concerns, but the board cannot deliberate, discuss, or make a decision on any subject that is not posted on the agenda. Persons who speak to the board cannot complain about a district officer or employee in open session. Such concerns are heard in closed session after proper posting of the agenda item has occurred. As you come forward, please state your name and your address. Our first speaker is Letitia Greeley.
Good evening. My name is Letitia Greeley. Address is 6726 Haven Forest Lane in Richmond, Texas, 77469. I come before you in regards to my son, who is a sophomore at George Ranch High School. He stands accused of a felony charge of March 20th for possession of a controlled substance. My son has been wrongfully expelled of this charge. He was in possession of a vape pen that he received from another student to pass to someone else. Since this time, after my son was searched, he was, drugs was taken from another student and planted on my son or in my son's possession by administration staff, AP principal. My son now resides in ALC for the duration of the school year. He originally was placed in JJAEP for the felony charge. That was overturned by school officials and the charge was switched to a misdemeanor. So now he has to reside in ALC again. I, as a parent, feel as if he should not receive any type of punishment because he has not done anything wrong. He did not have any drugs. The drugs, again, were planted on him from another student by a school official. So I feel that my son should be allowed to go back to regular school without being in any type of alternative school. So that's why I stand before you today making my complaint to be known about the AP principal at George Ranch High School. And that is all that I have on this evening.
President.
Thank you very much. This time I need a motion to approve the minutes of the March 20, 2018 special meeting workshop.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? There are none. The motion passes. Need a motion to approve the minutes from March 22nd, 2018 regular board meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second to that? Any questions or discussion? Not all, and those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The motion carries. Thank you. Board member reports? Just
I think I have the most.
charge into it, Kay.
All right, bear with me. We've got a few little highlights to do. On Tuesday, we had a facilities committee meeting, and at that time, these were what they reported on from the 2014 bond. For Don Carter Elementary, construction is progressing well. Exterior masonry is nearing completion, and casework is beginning to be delivered to the site. For our new construction sites, like the new Culver Elementary School, contractor has been issued notice to proceed with construction, and the Fulshire High School shell space contractor has started work to instruct the interior classrooms and will be completed before the beginning of the 2018-2019 school year. On our agenda tonight, new Roberts Middle School construction contract is on our agenda for us to award. Underway construction, new maintenance and operations facility scheduled to occupy later in April. The band hall additions at Terry High School and Lamar High School, certificate of occupancy has been issued on both sites. Natatoriums at George Ranch, Foster, and Fulshire High Schools are scheduled for completion in August. The installation of card access hardware is ongoing at all schools. Linking all staff ID batches to their schools is in process. The replacement of exterior lighting across the district is nearing completion. And the new water well and new water storage tanks have been installed at Foster High School, waiting on the final test reports to be activate. Now, we also had report that the tracks at Campbell and Dickinson have been completed. They're gonna just do a few touch-ups and a little more, was it at Dickinson? I think for some of the water drainage. Was that Dickinson? Dickinson. But other than that, you can go by there in the evening and they're already being used. And during the day. During recess, I'm sure they are. Also, we've already started beginning the 2017 bond by, I think on the board book tonight, we have an agenda item to get started on the new roofs for Seguin Elementary School and Austin Elementary School. So we are proceeding nicely with our facilities. We did not have a technology meeting this month, but when I went through, there's a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention. A printer and copier refresh. They had 9 responses to the district RFQ, and a proposal should come to us in May or June for our approval. And ClassLink, I think this is exciting. They basically have over 1 million logins right now, and last year at this time we only had 258,000 logins. So we are now averaging over 100,000 app launches per month from ClassLink. And of course, the Project Grow is on its way again for another year, and those that are not familiar, that's an awesome program that keeps our kindergarten and pre-K kids that might slide back over the summer to use a computer, use the Waterford program. So I was glad to see some things, and we'll be getting more on our agenda in the future. Let's see. Then I was going to pitch it for the Finance Committee today, and basically we just had an overview of the different structural changes that are in our board book under information, and basically the highlights is going from, because more people are on EPO, that we're going to phase out the PPO, and our United Healthcare is our care group, and they look like there is a weight loss plan that can be offered to our staff, that they can come together in a group and lose weight together.
And why'd you bring that up?
I don't know, but I might want to join with the teachers as we come out of the. But anyway, these it sounds like our district is doing well by our employees. Over the last month, some of the schools have extended invitations to us to come and see some of the things they're doing. And I know Mr. Steenberg and I both went to Lamar Consolidated High School the last few weeks, went to their senior serve, and we also got to see their National Honor Society ceremony. And I just want to shout out that I know none of us can all go to everything all the time, but it's nice to get the invite, and if we can make it, we like to come and see what our students are doing. And Last but not least, yesterday, almost all of us attended the YIP luncheon yesterday, and it said, that's Youth in Philanthropy. They said over $171,000 in scholarships were handed out. I couldn't keep up with it, but it looked like between 20 to 30 of our kids got scholarships, and one of our students, it's Brianna Johnson from Foster, got one of the top scholarships for $5,000. So I'm very proud of how hard those kids work and what they accomplished.
Yes, the district was well represented there.
Our
yesterday.
district was very well represented, and I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Kay. Anybody else? All right, Dr. Randall, anything from you?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I'm going to be the first one to sign up for the weight loss program. So and I, too, was very proud of our students at the YIP luncheon this week. They really did us proud. The 37th Annual Special Olympics Invitational Track Meet was this past weekend at Traylor Stadium. Unfortunately, due to weather, the event had to be canceled shortly after it began. However, we were able to honor and recognize those students, plus our student volunteers and cheerleaders really stepped up and entertained everyone when we were in a lightning delay. So a big thank you to everyone, especially the special ed department, for all the hard work for this event. The annual job fair is set for Saturday, April 21st at Foster High School, and it'll be from 9 to 2 p.m. This is always a big event. If you recall, last year we had over 800 applicants that attended that job fair. So we're looking forward to another great turnout this weekend, and if you don't have anything to do Saturday morning, come on by. The first ever Lamar CISD Digital Media Festival will be on April 26th at Foster High School. The festival will showcase student projects in film, graphic design, illustration, and photography. It will be hosted by our CTE Arts, AV, Technology, and Communications classes. The doors will open at 5 p.m. So if you want to see something really exciting, you might want to attend that event as well. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That's 5 p.m. Foster on the 26th.
Yes, sir.
All right, great, thank you. All right, this time we will establish the consent agenda. Shout out if you need something pulled. Item A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8, B9, B10, B11, B12, B13, B14, B15, B16, C1. It looks like all of our action items are on the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Have a second to that, please? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. Motion carries. We've completed the consent agenda. Under the informational items, I believe we have a presentation on the A through F accountability system.
Do you want me to read those things?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. You're absolutely right. The our proclamations. Okay, would you?
Yeah, mine. Okay.
I had it there in big highlighted letters and.
That's okay. All right, we do have 3 resolutions. The first one, whereas public school paraprofessionals are valuable members of educational teams in classrooms, gymnasiums, libraries with special education students, and more. And whereas public school paraprofessionals contribute in many ways beyond their most recognizable functions. And whereas the assistance of public school paraprofessionals is particularly important in the daily activities and operations of a school district. And whereas public school paraprofessionals serve our educational community by providing support for students and staff. Whereas public school paraprofessionals assist school and district personnel as trusted communicators with parents and community members. And whereas the connection of public school paraprofessionals to the community aids in communication and positive public relations within the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent Schools District declares May 9th, 2018 as Public School Paraprofessionals Day and encourages all members of our staff and community to express appreciation to our public school paraprofessionals. Adopted this 19th day of April 2018. Next. Whereas school nurses play a critical role in the educational process through involvement in prevention of illness and the early detection and correction of health problems. And whereas school nurses must be specially prepared and qualified to practice preventive health measures, assess health conditions, and handle referrals. And whereas school nurses serve the multiple roles of health educator and health counselor to children and families, resource person to classroom teachers and administrators, child advocate in times of crisis and liaison among home, school, and community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees, Lamar Consolidated Independent School District, declares the week of May 6th through the 12th, 2018 as School Nurses Week and encourages all members of our staff and community to express appreciation to school nurses. Adopted this 19th day of April 2018. And finally, whereas today's teachers mold our future citizens through their guidance and education, and whereas today's teachers encounter students of widely differing backgrounds and abilities, and whereas our society expects public education to provide quality education services to all children, no matter what their background or ability, and whereas our country's future depends on the education our youth receive today, and whereas teachers spend countless hours outside their classrooms preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing in community service, and whereas our community recognizes that its teachers are providing quality educational services to our children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declares the week of May 7th through the 11th, 2018 as Teacher Appreciation Week, and calls on the community to join with us in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for a job well done. Adopted this 19th day of April, 2018.
Thank you. It ought to be Teachers' Year Appreciation, but thank you. Sorry I rushed you a while ago.
That's okay.
All right, now we'll do 8.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. Randall. We've just finally received the A through F accountability system in its final form from the Commissioner of Education. It seemed like an appropriate time to review some of the changes in the criteria. Mrs. Kaminsky, I believe it was a couple of months ago, asked a question about why we do not set a certain percentage for growth in terms of the DIP or the District Improvement Plan. And this presentation is in part an explanation of where the state is right now, and that they have not yet, until all of the results come in, determined what the cut scores will be. So it makes it a little bit of a challenge to estimate where you would like to improve. I'll turn the program over to Mr. Moore, and he'll be available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Better. Good evening.
Good evening.
This evening we have an overview of the assessment and accountability, and we wanted to give a historical context to the history of assessment in Texas. In 1980, we had our first state assessment, and that was called the TABS test, or the Texas Assessment of Basic Skills. That was implemented for 5 years, and it was replaced in 1986 by the Texas Educational Assessment of Minimal Skills. And this was the first test in Texas that was tied to a state curriculum. It was also the first time we had high stakes testing. You had to pass the test in order to graduate. In 1990, that was replaced by the Texas Assessment of Academic Skills, which lasted until 2002. This was the first time that we started to see limited amounts of students who were English language learners and special ed students that would be assessed in the state system. 2003 was the next iteration of that, and that was the Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills, which was based on the second generation of curriculum, which we still use today, which is the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, or the TEKS. It was also the first assessment to be inclusive of all ELL and special education students. So students that had been in those groups were only tested on a limited basis before and were finally brought into the system. In 2012, the STAR test was introduced, and this was the first assessment out of the continuum that assessed post-secondary skills, that looked at how much do kids know and how much they're ready for the workforce. So just to look at the dichotomy here, and I highlighted certain words here on purpose. We started with basic skills and basic literacy almost 40 years ago, and then we evolved into minimal skills, academic skills, knowledge and skills, and now academic readiness. So we've gone, for an example, if you were an 11th grader in 1982, this would have been a question on your math test. Okay? Very simple, basic skills of find the state that produces the least oil. By 2017, the last release test of the Algebra 1 STAR, which is the terminal test for math skills in Texas, that had evolved into a much more complex question that asked you what was the height, the time, and then based on that, identify what function you have to use. So we saw a tremendous change in both the rigor of the test and the depth of knowledge that you have to answer the questions. When we look back at the performance history of TOS and TAX and STAR, we really don't have many records before 1994. But the past 25 years, we have a pretty good record of what happened. The TOS test, we started with only about 55% of the kids passing. By the time we ended the system in 2002, about 85% of students could pass the TOS test. With the TAX test, we started at about 70%. We ended at about 75%, but remember, this was the first time we had students who were ELLs in special ed that tested into the system. And then we came to STAR in 2012. We started out at 75%, and we've actually declined in the passing rate. Now, at the beginning of the system, we do have to look at the fact that the standards on a student level were 14 points lower at the beginning of the STAR system than they were at the end of the TAX system. So we did have lower expectations. But what we've seen, especially since 2015, is we've seen stagnant and slightly declining performance statewide. All of these are statewide figures. Well, part of the reason why we've seen that is we've seen several implementation issues that have gone along with with introducing STAR. The first one was House Bill 5, which was in 2013. Originally, STAR had 15 end-of-course components. And so it was reduced back to the current 5, which are the English 1, 2, biology, algebra, and U.S. history. But we also saw for our English teachers that they had split the reading and writing into 2 tests, and then with House Bill 5, recombined those within a 2-year period. So we had to go back and rewrite the English curriculum. In 2015, the State Board of Education rolled out new TEKS for grades 3 through 8. It significantly increased the rigor of the instruction and the assessment. The problem was we lost the summer of 2015 because the tests were in a field test mode, which means we didn't get results back until the fall. House Bill 743, which came out of the 84th, I believe the 84th session in 2015, reduced the number of questions on all 3 through 8 tests so that 85% of students could finish within 2 or less hours. But what that meant is that you went from, in some cases, a 50-question test down to a 30-question test. You lost significant number of items, and so when you lose significant number of items on a test, each individual item has to weigh more in order to get the final score. It also changed the curriculum blueprint of the test, because when you took those items and you combined it, you have to combine skills that previously we taught and assessed separately. We now have to teach those and assess those together. So it made a change where we had to rewrite, once again, we had to rewrite the curriculum. In 2016, the commissioner at that time, Commissioner Williams, increased the passing expectations by 2 percentage points. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you take all this into context, it does have an impact. In 2016, we had a new testing contractor. We had switched from Pearson, that had held the contract for 35 years prior, to the Educational Testing Service, ETS, and ETS was honestly not able to handle the second largest state at the time. We had issues with technical and logistical issues. We had one issue that's very infamous across the state, where student tests were actually lost electronically, and then we had another issue where student tests were actually lost physically. So this impacted to the point where the commissioner canceled the 5th and 8th grade administration during the summer, and a lot of the senior assessment and accountability folks at TEA either were retired or reassigned. So we had an overturn in folks at TEA. Just last year, TEA changed the structure of the English 1 and English 2 tests again to eliminate the short answer, which caused us to have to go back and restructure how we teach kids. And then in 2017, also, Commissioner Morath introduced the current structure of the approaches, grade level, meets, and masters, which is approaches is not well understood by the public, it's actually passing. And then there's meets grade level, which means that you're at where you should be, and then masters is like what we used to call commended. Some not so direct issues that affected testing. We had leadership changes at TEA. We've had 3 different commissioners since 2007. We've had conflicting, inconsistent, or incomplete directives. Advice on how to change, advice on how to handle situations changes as each commissioner has restructured the departments within the agency. Some policy has been left up to the interpretation of individual personnel, and it even gets down to the point where sometimes they forget to change things in test administration manuals. So you see these mistakes trickle throughout the bureaucracy. We've had technical issues during the test, and those technical issues many times will negatively impact student concentration and the ability for students to focus. One happened just this last Tuesday. We had 104,000 students statewide that got knocked off of their online test because of a server restart at ETS. Luckily, unlike what we had in 2016, where there were 14,000 student tests lost, this one we were able to restore all of the tests, and in our district, we had about 400 students, and they were back online within 15 to 20 minutes. And you even get down to occasional errors in printing of test booklets. We've received booklets in 2014 and 2016 that were missing pages or large chunks, or had some pages even blacked out by printing errors. So when you put all these together and you take a look at the statewide performance history, as I mentioned earlier, the bottom would be the student expectation or the cut score. The top is the passing rate. When we factor all these together, what we've seen is that a 2-point increase in performance expectations plus a significant decrease in test items has led, at least for the 16 and 17 administrations, in a 2% decline in the statewide passing rate. So we're coming to the A through F system, and I mention that because this all has a big impact on how the A through F system will be implemented. The first system that we had previous to that was one that most people understood, most people liked it. It was the tax and TOS system, and it was what's called a cell-based indicator system, where each one of those numbers represented student performance for a group. And if you were above a certain floor, 10 years ago it was 75, then you were considered a recognized campus. It disaggregated students' performance by test and group. And then for districts or high schools, you also had added into that completion rate, which is graduation. You also had dropout rate and attendance factor. And over the 20 years of this system, we all got used to the labels of unacceptable or low performing, acceptable, recognized, and exemplary. In 2012, with the new STAR test, we had a new index system where we went from a cell-based structure to 4 indexes. And 3 of those were based strictly off of STAR, and that was the student achievement, progress, and closing the gaps. The 4th index, which was post-secondary readiness, Rich, remember this is the first time we're measuring that in Texas, was based on students that met the post-secondary readiness standard on STAR, graduation rates, graduation plan, and post-secondary readiness as far as students meeting the Higher Ed Coordinating Board's TSI or Texas Success Initiative standard, plus those who earn dual credit, or those who are in what's called a coherent sequence of career and technical education courses, which are courses that lead up to certification or some other job skill that is beyond high school. We only had 2 ratings. Those were met standard or improvement required, although you could get distinction designations. And they used what's called a forced distribution for index 2 and 3, which meant that no matter what happened, the statistics were going to be that 5% of Texas schools or 5% of Texas districts would fail one of those 2 indicators. The current system that we're coming into starting this year is the A through F system. It was passed by the governor in June of 17. It ended the plan that we had discussed before about including community and student engagement data, or how you perceive your schools. And it evolved from 4 indexes into 3 domains, which are now going to be student achievement, student progress, and closing the gaps. We received the index, the preliminary targets last Tuesday, even though we don't have final information. We won't receive that until May or June as to what the final targets are going to be as far as hard numerical definitions. The first domain is student achievement. For all campuses, it'll be based on measuring the percent of students that are at approaches and meet and masters simultaneously, and creating an index score based off of that by dividing it by 3. Then for high schools and districts, we have a new component called CCMR, which is college, career, and military readiness. This is the amount of students that meets one of the indicators I'm about to show you over the graduation cohort. So that would include students that met the TSI standard, either by taking the ACT, the SAT, or the TSIA test. Students who earned 3 credit hours in math or ELA in dual credit, or 3 credit hours in dual credit, or 9 credit hours in dual credit of any other subject. Earning 3 or higher on an advanced placement test. Earning a CTE certification from the commissioner's approved list. Although in the next couple of years we will receive half credit for students that are in courses aligned to that list. The problem with the list is there's only 73 certifications, and half of those certifications are either in construction technology or in automotive repair, ASE. Take and pass approved prep courses for math or reading, or math and reading. Take and pass an ONRAPS course, which we are offering in Lamar. That's from the University of Texas, both at Austin and UT Permian Basin. Or declared interest in military service, and for the first time, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test, which is the ASVAB test, we're required to offer that during the school day at least once per year. Domain 2 will be student progress, and it'll be one of 2 different measures. The first one is the number of students making progress on STAR versus everyone that tested. And then the second one will be the relative performance of the campus or district compared to where they expect you to perform based on your percentage of economically disadvantaged students. So it's what's called a regression analysis. So on the median line here, campuses right in that direct area will be C campuses. Campuses that are above will be considered A or B, and then campuses that are below would be D or F campuses. The third piece of this is a closing the gaps domain, and that will be a return to a self-based indicator system. But it's many more cells than what we had seen in the past, because instead of just having, like with AEIS, we had all students. That was my reaction as well. Instead of having just all students and then African American, Hispanic, white, economically disadvantaged, it will be all students, all races, ethnicities, with 10 students or above, economically disadvantaged, special education and formally special education, English language learner, students that are mobile, graduation rates by student group, and then it'll disaggregate the CCMR by student group. Now, STAR performance will be at the meet grade level standard, so instead of passing, it's going to be at that second standard in the continuum. Instead of at approaches, it'll be at meets. And the rating for a campus or a district will be based on the number of indicators that you get above the floor for those indicators over the total number. So it's the number of indicators, let's say the floor is 75, it's the number that you get above 75 over, and there could be up to 130 different indicators. So it's going to be a ratio of how many you get versus how many there are in total. And what we've heard from TEA is that if a campus misses a single indicator, the same single indicator 3 years in a row, they could be targeted for intervention. But that's not set in stone as of yet. Your overall rating will be the grade for domain 1 or 2, whichever's better, plus the grade for domain 3, where domain 1 or 2 will weigh at 70%, and then domain 3 will weigh at 30%. And by law, it's set to where it's not weighed any less than 30%. So the commissioner can increase or decrease that over time. Some key differences to note from what we've seen in the past. First of all, domain 1 is going to measure 3 things simultaneously. So it's going to be measuring the students that passed, the students that are at grade level, and the students that are commended all at the same time. CCMR is highly dependent on outside sources of data, vendors, and an expense to the district. Unlike what we've seen in the past with the old accountability systems, where it was highly based on the tests that were offered by the state, we have to give opportunities for students to take the SAT or to take the TSIA and to meet those criteria. And so that's going to be extra expense from us as the taxpayers to help fund that. It'll also be more dependent on what we call lagging indicators, especially in domains 1 and 3. And a lagging indicator is one that's a year behind. So for instance, when we receive our A through F ratings this year, it'll be based on the class of 2017. Now, to give you a little bit of context, the class of 2017 graduated 2 days before the House passed this on to the governor, and 3 weeks before the governor signed it into law. So we're always going to be a year behind with certain indicators like CCMR or graduation rate. Campuses will be directly compared to one another in domain 2. Data from domain 1 will also be recycled in or used in domains 2 and 3. So instead of looking at it from just one perspective, as we've seen in the past, especially the tax TOS system, you're going to look at the data through 3 different lenses. You're going to look at the data through the lens of sheer performance, growth, and then performance at a different level based on disaggregated by student group. The good things that come out of this, because I have been a little bit of doom and gloom, but the good things that come out of this are that federal and state accountability for the first time are going to be fully integrated. So unlike what we had 15 years ago with AYP, where we had a state system and a federal system chasing each other, that won't happen with the new system. And then also, the commissioner has made it a goal to not change targets for at least 5 years. Now, there might be some fine tuning in that, but in order to really truly see if we've had improvement, the goal of this new system is at least through I believe it's 2027, which I retire in 2025, that there will not be a change in the targets. To give you a kind of an analogy here, an A would be exemplary, a B recognized, a C acceptable, and a D for this year will be met standard to allow campuses that are on the edge to step into the system, because we're not going to receive the letter grades for the campuses this year. We're just receiving it for the district, and we'll still be on that Met standard improvement required for campuses. But it'll allow us to give a warning that this campus might have an issue. And then an F will be unacceptable or improvement required. So in summary, I use a picture here from Flight of the Phoenix, which is one of my favorite movies. And the plot line, of course, is engineers are reconstructing and building a plane as they're flying it. And our philosophy has been that very much of Orville Wright, when he was asked, why does the plane stay up? Instead of going into the complex explanations of the lift and the other physics behind it, he just frankly said, the plane doesn't have time to fall. And we don't have time to fall, and we don't have time to fail our students. Any questions?
So, when we get this grade
Yes.
for our district, it is all on students that have already left our district before the rules and regulations actually were put,
Not all of it.
not all, but,
The CCMR component is.
okay,
The STAR component will be based on what happened in 17-18.
okay.
But a good chunk of it with CCMR, yes, is based on students that had already graduated before this became law.
Yes, that these gradings will come out just before the legislature goes into session next year.
Mr. Steenbergen, you are very perceptive. While the district will receive a grade in August, the campus grades in the what if report, which is what we had with House Bill 2804, that will not come out until right before Christmas.
Oh, imagine
After the
that.
election.
Imagine that.
After the election,
After the
in a
election,
couple of
before
weeks.
the legislature goes into session.
Precisely.
Just observation.
Another question?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, you got me at the very beginning, you lost me already, other than.
Sorry.
No, parents,
Yes.
is there anything in the making of how do we explain this as commonly as we can to the parents?
We are working on that. I would hope, though, that TEA would take the lead in that, because they've tried to do that with the change in the scoring standards last year. So I'm hoping that there's a few videos that you're able to access from our website that TEA has produced, but I think it's going to take a lot of explanation.
We do provide an update for the principals every time the legislature or the commissioner makes a change to the rulings. And Brian also provided us with a cheat sheet, which we distributed recently. I wouldn't call it a cheat sheet, but it's a one-page sheet, both sides, where it reduces it to its kernel or its core, so that you can quickly look through it and see where we stand now with the legislature. There are a few components that are probably still in question. One of those is, until all of the test results from this spring are in, we really don't know how they will adjust cut scores or whatever. If it's too rigorous, then every district could be in the D or F range. So it's kind of a floating variable right now. One of the reasons the STAR scores began so much higher than where, say, the team scores or the other iterations began is that they made the score or the exam so rigorous that the pass rate, for example, in Algebra 1 for the first year was only 38%, correct?
So they lowered the standards so that they.
So they had to move that cut score down. And it looks like we had a higher pass rate for STAR, but the reason for that is,
Then that whole state would have failed.
yeah.
I would encourage the board members, if you haven't seen it, to get a copy of the 8th grade STAR study sheets and work through that and tell me what you think.
Do second grade. There's only two words that come into mind for parents is, and maybe the news media, don't panic, be patient. Because when they do see this first report, my instinct is, my school is not very good.
It'll be challenging.
Well,
It'll be
yeah,
challenging.
Just ask parents not to panic.
Yes.
But if they, when you take a grade and put, when we had exemplary and we had recognized, they kind of understood that. But when you take the cold, hard grades, just like when in the classroom, we used to give A's, B's, and C's, and when we went to giving them a 92 or 93 or 89, the parents were happier because they could see where their students were. So it's going to take a lot of us saying, okay, this might look bad, but this is really,
Be patient.
yeah.
Someone will
And
straighten it out.
then again, the whole state could be looking not too great, they'll have to go change everything.
Well, I think the thing that can sometimes be frustrating for principals is that you can have one cell or one tiny subgroup, and We've even seen situations where two students could swing you from being recognized to a different level. Mr. Moore is affectionately known as our prophet of doom amongst the principals. And I'd like to thank him for his presentation this evening. And just let our board know that one of our mantras is we're going to fly the plane. We have seen a lot and heard a lot of, I guess, grumbling is probably a euphemistic way to say it, about the state accountability system, but it is what it is. And our devotion is mainly to make sure our kids have the best, very best educational experience that we can give them. So.
Whatever they throw at us, we'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to close session. We're going to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082 of the Open Meetings Act at 8:02. 8:31. Do we have some motions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the renewal of contracts for the professional teachers and support personnel except those identified in the addendum.
Do I have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the recommendation of Leslie Hack as the Deputy Superintendent for Support Services.
Do I have a second to that motion? Second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. She left. Another motion?
She should be in there. That's you.
We're celebrating.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the purchase of approximately 15 acres, more or less located along Beachnet Drive near the intersection of Beachnet Drive and Peak Road in Fort Meade County, Texas, to be used for an elementary school campus or other district facilities, and authorize superintendent to negotiate and execute a final sale and purchase agreement, as well as any related necessary amendments, closing documents, and post-closing documents related thereto.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. Thank you. The motion passes. I believe we have one more.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the administration's recommendation that the board propose the non-renewal of Ms. Lakeitra Hamilton's term contract of employment at the end of its term for this current school year, and authorize the superintendent or his designee to give notice of this action.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very much. That's all the action items in closed session. Do we have any future agenda items?
I just wanted to can we discuss the reports from the police department on a monthly basis, or?
Well,
Can we put that
I'll
in?
take care of that. We've sort of addressed that before. Upcoming meetings and events?
Job fair on Saturday.
Job fair,
And then that other,
dinner, employee banquet,
that's right, Tuesday night. And
teacher of
then
the year,
then-
or
No,
something.
the 26th, we're
20
supposed to Foster High School, the
Yes.
technology.
And I know that all the board members have signed up for the training in May.
Yes.
Yes.
Just a reminder that training has to be done
Mandatory.
before September 1st. So, and I think everybody signed up for it, so you
And
get
it's
it
gonna
out
be
of the
here.
way and you won't have to worry
I'm
about
glad
that.
it's here in the district.
And it's here in the district, so
That's on the 23rd, correct?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
May 23rd.
All right. No other issues to bring before this board. This meeting is adjourned at 8:34. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.